Hey folks, Canadian Prepper here. Your time is precious, so I'm not going to waste it. Guys, the Dow Jones is down 1,300 points in one day, a record since June of 2020. On any other day, that would be the news of today, but not today. We got a lot of big news to talk about and some big, scary predictions for you. You don't come here for the good news. If you want good news, go and watch our blue strip, blue pill videos that we release once a week. Lots of gallows humor in there, just enough copium to get you through, okay? But for people with the big boy pants and for the adults in the room, this is for you. Let's just get right down to brass taxes now. CPI numbers came in higher than expected, which I expected because, of course, the gas prices didn't really drop as significantly as they did in July, which I think was where a lot of the CPI pressure was relieved, but not this month. And we all know that the actual measure of CPI is different than it was in the past. Go and watch the video that we released with Peter Schiff, where he explains how the government changed the way they measure the CPI, aka inflation, back, I think it was in the 70s, so that they could pay out less to people who are on Social Security and anything else that the government pays out for that matter. So anyways, go and check that out. Now, where to start here? We got the scientists saying the sky is falling. We got the economists saying the sky is falling, the epidemiologists, and now even those beacons of hope, the purveyors of religion themselves, the Pope of all people, doubling down and reiterating a statement that he made 2 months ago, where he said that an apocalyptic war is coming. Actually, that's kind of a paraphrase. What he said was, a few years ago, it occurred to me to say that we are experiencing a third world war fought piecemeal. This comes on the heels of the Vatican Bank calling in all its liquid and financial assets held in banks other than the IOR, which I believe stands for the Institute Works of Religion Bank, by October 1st or September 30th, if I'm correct. Now, is this because they expect something coming at the end of the month? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they realize that the whole thing's going to crap, so they might as well, bring back all their funds while they can before the global recession hits, the de-dollarization, whatever it is. Is that coming in a month's time? I don't know. I just want to clarify something. I keep getting messages about what some German parliamentarians said about September 24th. I looked into it. We did a fact check. It was just misspeaking. He intended to say February 24th, something. We're all going to remember the day February 24th. But what he actually said was, you're going to remember where you are on September 24th. What he meant to say was February 24th, with respect, of course, to when the Russians started the invasion. Anyways, nothing burger, guys. Don't worry about that. But yeah, there's plenty to be worried about. But I don't worry because I'm a prepper. People think, oh, Nate, you're too worried. You're always panicked. You're always anxious. No, I can talk about all this stuff day after day because I'm not worried about it, because I'm as prepared as I'm going to be. But it's important to know what's coming next. It's important to anticipate what is coming down the road so we can be ahead of the curve, because the time may come where I need to double, if not triple down on these preparedness efforts. So anyways, apocalyptic war is coming. What else is new? Now, apparently, we're going to be declining this call here. Sorry about that, guys. Ukraine has readied a major offensive near the Zaparizia power plant. This is according to Vladimir Rogov, a member of the main council of the Zaparizia Regional Administration, said that the armed forces of Ukraine get ready for a large-scale offensive in the area of the Zaparizia nuclear power plant. If you didn't know, the plant is now non-operational, and there is a high risk of a radioactive event taking place, namely, of course, in the spent fuel rod storage areas being hit, whatever the case might be. So I did a video yesterday that talked about the offensives that were taking place. There was a part of the country of Ukraine called Kharkov where the Russians were vastly outnumbered. I believe it was 15,000 compared to 2,000. So they did what you would normally do under those conditions to avoid the annihilation of your military or the capture, is they pulled back. Now, I suspected that this and all of this is grounds for shaping public opinion within Russia to accept a more broader general mobilization. And this is exactly what is happening within the last 24 hours since I released that video. We have Russian state media arguing about the issue of general mobilization in such a way that is not nearly as scripted as their stuff appeared to be earlier in the year. There is some extreme anxiety right now about why Putin, according to them, isn't doing enough and that he needs to declare a general military mobilization. Lots of talk about that. You even have it being debated in the Duma right now. A lawmaker, Mikhail Sheremet, a member of the State Duma Security Committee and the ruling United Russian Party, spoke out in favor of general mobilization on Monday, according to the URARU news agency. He says, without full mobilization, switching to the war mode, including the economy, we will not achieve the desired results. Even a Russian commander, Alexander Khodorkovsky, a Kremlin-backed commander and former political leader in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, is giving quite a bleak assessment of Russia's performance in the war. Now, this is from Newsweek, that is notoriously biased in the reporting of this conflict. But essentially, the gist of it is that yes, they need more power, but they also need to work on how they're maneuvering those forces. So there's a push there. We also have Medvedev, who responded to, I think it was something that Zelensky had said. Okay, so he's the former, Dmitry Medvedev is the former president of Russia. And he basically said that the current ultimatum that Russia is offering, which is basically that, you know, Kiev needs to sign or whatever sort of ultimatum they have, is just a warm-up for kids compared to the requirements of the future. Of course, signaling that these critical infrastructural targets are going to continue, that we've entered a new phase of this war where they're actually going to be, the demands of Russia are going to be bigger than they are now, perhaps. Peskov had said that they've passed the point of negotiations several days ago, although I think we all knew that that was the case. They're facing a lot of backlash from Russian bloggers who hold a large amount of sway over public opinion, and this is all pushing them in the direction of a general mobilization. And once that happens, it will be a pivotal moment in the war, but they're not really going to call it that. It's the same way that they didn't call the invasion an invasion. You know, they're never going to call it now a general mobilization because everybody fears conscription. Or not everybody, but some people in Russia fear conscription. And inevitably, even though they have a lot of forces in reserve, they're going to, accompanying a general mobilization would be some sort of military draft, which would be unpopular. So you have to get public opinion to the point where the public is demanding a general mobilization and is in some way, shape, or form okay with some level of conscription, I assume. Pro-Russian blogger Yuri Podolyak admitted on Telegram that the losses were large and cannot be ignored, describing Saturday as one of the most difficult days of this war. Now, when he says losses, he's talking about the loss of territory, not the loss of military equipment or personnel. They're talking about the loss of territory here, which, yeah, for all we know, there's a plan. Okay, like I was talking with a fellow employee here, and we were talking about, you know, how if I can think of these things, there's no way that, you know, if I in June was saying that this supposed offensive, this grand offensive Ukraine was planning in the south was just a diversion, then you know that they thought about that also. But for whatever reason, they have coaxed the Ukrainians into the Kharkov region once again. They shut the lights out, and now they're attacking the critical infrastructure. So it appears that we've definitely entered a new phase of this war. So you do have state-sponsored media within Russia really testing public attitudes as to whether or not they're ready to accept the general mobilization, because you know that that's the next move, right? Oh, Putin is too weak. And what the Russians, I think, originally thought was that they were going to be welcomed, because remember, there were pro-Russian presidents there in the past, and maybe Putin had some bad intelligence or whatever the case might have been. They thought that they were going to be more well received and that they weren't going to have as much resistance. But of course, now that has changed, and they're starting to realize that they're not going to be able to win the hearts and minds of a lot of the people, especially now with some of the tactics that are being deployed. Most people now, when the Russians move into an area, are going to be very reluctant to help them out of fear of being tortured or put in jail or whatever the case might be after, or if the Russians ever, retreat from that region. So it's a very complicated situation there for the invading forces. The head of Just Russia for Truth, Sergei Mironov, declares that Russia started the military operation but is now waging a real war with NATO. So mobilization of the economy and budget and mobilization in people's minds is what we need. So they're saying that, originally we thought this was just a special military operation in Ukraine, but now we're realizing we're fighting all of NATO, and for that we need a full-scale mobilization. That's looking like where it's going. I'm almost 100% confident it's not going to be called that. They're going to use some other euphemistic term, but that's what will happen. They're even saying that Germany has crossed the red line, and I don't know why this is new, because Germany has been sending weapons to Ukraine all along. The very fact that the Ukrainian regime is being supplied with German-made lethal weapons, which are not used only against Russian military service members, but also the civilian population of Donbass, crosses the red line, said Ambassador Sergei Nechayev in an interview with a newspaper. They've crossed the Rubicon, he says. Well, I thought they crossed that long ago, so I don't even know why that's really news. You got the Chechens, move in 10,000 guys in there. There was a report on Zero Hedge. I shouldn't call it a report. It was a editorial, I guess, about whether or not they're going to use tactical nukes, and that was the reason for the retreat from Kharkov. They're never going to use tactical nukes on a predominantly civilian target. It's just never going to happen. It would be a nightmare from a PR perspective, even with what remains of Russia's allies. So you can pretty much throw that idea out the window. Where they might use it is if they do see a strong concentration of Ukrainian forces, and if things get down to the wire and they start running low on certain munitions, then they're going to look at this stockpile of 5,000 nukes, tactical nukes. I think 2,000 tactical nukes is what they have. And they're going to say to themselves, one of these things could solve a lot of problems. So as we move into winter, there's a few ways this could go. Will there be some sort of armistice or frozen conflict, literally, due to the terrain, due to the conditions, due to the fact that it's going to take a lot more resources to keep soldiers warm. Typically, in wintertime, it favors the defenders because they're situated, they're not mobile. It's harder you need a lot of energy, you need a lot of gas, a lot of diesel to just keep soldiers warm and keep people advancing. And that, of course, is problematic. It's much easier to be dug in. So are they taking out this critical infrastructure right now to kind of even the playing field when that does happen? Who knows? But this is a whole new level because they haven't done this yet. They've been reluctant to take out critical infrastructure as of yet. But now, like I say, they've given up on, I think, most diplomatic channels, and we're one stage away from all-out war. And that will be announced soon. I don't know if it's going to, like I say, they're going to call it something else. And a lot of people are going to roll with that, but we'll know what it is when it happens. I don't know what they'll call it. There'll be some sort of other special mobilization or I don't know. Israel has been touting its success by lobbying the U.S. administration not to go through with the Iranian nuclear deal. So forget about that. So that's just one more potential flashpoint of World War III flare-up, which is on the horizon. What else do we got here? In financial news, yes, we got the Dow Jones crashing as a result of inflation. Of course, on everybody's minds in the United States is this railway strike. Like I say, guys, as a prepper, I'm not too concerned about it. Yes, it may definitely impact some stores' ability to move certain products. It will affect our store and our inventories potentially, but we're pretty stocked up because we're prepared for what happens next. And I would encourage you to do so as well. As I've said in the past, I'm dumping all of any sort of disposable income I have. We're not sitting on any cash right now. And I know some people would say, well, in a bear market, you want to have cash. You want to, seize those opportunities and capitalize on those opportunities. But I think we're far from the bottom right now. And I think one of the best hedges against inflation is things which are not going to depreciate, like food and stuff. Food won't depreciate if it's non-perishable. And even if it is perishable, the rate of inflation right now is so fast that it's almost holding its value. So we got Robert Kiyosaki talking about a catastrophic market collapse. Now, unlike Peter Schiff, he's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's saying that you should invest in cryptocurrencies. I don't know if I entirely agree with that. He's saying that they're going to usurp the US dollar and transform the entire financial system. Well, he might be right, and while he inevitably will be right someday, the blockchain technology and DeFi in general is going to likely revolutionize the financial industry, but it'll likely come at the hands of the perpetuators of the current fiscal fiat scheme. So I'm not as confident about cryptocurrency as he is, but something worth noting. People are starting to resist. Austrians are protesting the cost of living, about 3,000 people, which is not much, but that's how it starts, right? A lot of them were very similar in that same group of people with the anti-COVID style protests, and they are protesting the rising prices. Violent crime has increased about 5% in the United States since last year. We have the chip war intensifying as more advanced tech firms are being prohibited from doing business with China. So U.S. technology firms that receive government funding will be banned from building advanced technology facilities in China for a decade. Okay, so the government is preparing for the war with China. The U.S. railroads are enacting some contingency plans, so they're reaching out to different, like aviation, transport by cargo truck, and other types of logistical support in order to make up for any sort of shortfall that's experienced by the railroads. Of course, they won't be able to because something like half of all stuff is shipped via railroads. So I'm glad that we stocked up when we did, because the price of freight, at least domestically, is going to increase significantly in the coming weeks. If those two unions aren't able to work something out. France has seen a record heat wave. We're talking about temperatures of 39 degrees here in almost mid-September. A big fire just broke out. We actually dealt with a pretty warm early September for this neck of the woods. It was just 33 degrees here just this past Sunday, which is pretty unheard of in September. I mean, it's not out of the ordinary, but it was a record temperature for the day. I mean, it's not out of the ordinary for us to have some warm days in September, but 33 degrees that far in, no, that's different. Yeah, so if you need any more confirmation that you need to be squirreling away and working in that garden, well, there it is. Germany's power grid, and this is from Zero Hedge, and Zero Hedge you always got to take with a grain of salt, but as I've said in previous videos, they've been tightening it up in recent years, although take everything from there with a grain of salt. But Germany's power grid faces collapse because a lot of people are buying these electric heaters, and the problem with electric heaters is they're very inefficient, which is why you'll never see a prepper channel, or you shouldn't anyways, see a prepper proponent of these types of electric heaters. They take way too much energy. You're never going to be able to power it via lithium battery, solar, or renewable combination unless you have a very large solar array, and it's just not a good use. That's why you need some kind of combustible in order to keep warm, be it wood, coal, or of course the holy grail, natural gas. So this is it's actually a really good prediction from Zero Hedge that yes, a lot of people are going to be putting immense amount of stress. They're not going to have the gas, so that is going to put stress on the rest of the power grid. And these heaters, they take a lot of energy, okay? So while people might not be able to, it might be against the law to turn up their thermostats, they're probably now going to have to pass a law saying that you can only use so much electricity, because that's where people are going to borrow it from, and that could of course cause blackouts, right? Satellite image reveals agricultural wasteland across California's rice capital. Yes, the water shortages and droughts continue to be a problem and continue to add to the supply chain woes. You see, I think these CPI figures, I think a lot of that, any reduction we've seen in CPI, is you can pretty much chalk it up to gas prices going down over the past few months. But when those start to go back up again, it's going to be a bad day to be in the markets, just like it was today. The UK is fearing a drought and high gas prices, as well as food shortages this winter. There's a big typhoon barreling towards Asia's largest container port, which may increase the shipping issues that we've seen over the past couple of years. This has caused several vessels to go out to sea to avoid damage. Now, this is not completely out of the ordinary. Apparently, this happens quite often, but just another nail in the coffin of the global supply chain. Heat wave has battered Spain's Mediterranean mussel crop. Same thing happened here last year in BC. Unprecedented temperatures roasted all of the mussels and the clams out there on the west coast. They were just basically cooked in their shells. Completely unprecedented. So, and last but not least, there's this article here about how psychologists now are starting to say to themselves, maybe these preppers weren't so crazy after all. Adam Fetterman, assistant professor of psychology at the University of Houston, wrote in April 2021 of his pre-pandemic research on preppers. We did not think that they would actually be applicable for actual events. We did not think that they were sane. We thought that they were kind of nutty. He originally thought that preppers were irrational, grudgingly conceded after the pandemic that events have proven them sort of right, and that it is probably a good idea to be prepared to some extent, but not total extent. I wonder when the government's going to realize that you can stimulate a crack-up boom in the economy real easy by telling people that the shit's going to hit the fan and they need to go and stock up. You'll have a massive spike in the markets, and that'll, stop the recession in its tracks, and then everybody will be prepared. But I'm sure there's going to be some unintended consequences of that, wouldn't there be? Anyways, guys, you let me know what you think of the day's daily news. I think that the general mobilization is coming. I think that the CPI is much higher than is being led on with these numbers, largely due to the fact that price reduction in gas wasn't as bad as it was in July. So that's making it seem as though inflation is actually going up relative to the month before. Year over year, still going up. Or sorry, is it going down year over year? I can't even remember. Either way, it's only a matter of 0.1 in either direction. But we all know that the price of food isn't coming down. I can't see how the price of food, which is one of the most important things, as well as energy, is going to go down anytime soon with all of these droughts and restrictions on what farmers can do, and just environmental stuff going on. I just can't see the price of food coming down. All the more reason to get out there in these final few days of the season and try to harvest what you can. We got tomatoes coming out the yin-yang. I got some, I was growing some Carolina Reaper peppers and some scorpion peppers in the garden, so I'm going to make some pepper spray out of that. So, you know, gardening can be tactical as well. We got our green peppers growing, we got our onions, we got potatoes. Not a whole lot, but enough. I call it an apoca plot. It's just a kind of a trial run, so then I could scale it up if I need to, if times really get hard. Stay tuned, guys. We've been experimenting with fire making here. We've been experimenting with Fresnel lenses, and we got a lot of cool gear reviews for you coming up. If you are looking for something a bit more distracting and less doomy and gloomy, please go and show your support for those blue strip, blue pill videos by just watching them and leaving a comment. And the more we get attention on those videos, the more of those videos we will make. But right now, and understandably so, people are concerned about real things that are going on in the world because it's affecting everybody's lives. And people, you know, focus on what matters most to them. So thanks for watching, guys. You take care. Canadian Prepper out.